Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Oh my God, can we just talk about, first of all, what a long day I have had already. I went to bed really early last night. Well, early for me. I went to bed about 12:30 last night. Well, I got into bed about 12:30, I think, and then I fell asleep right about 1 o'clock. And I wanted to go to bed early last night because I have so many things that, well, I had so many things that I needed to get done today. I wanted to film videos on almost all of my channels, which I did. And then I had a bunch of errands and just chores to run. And then I had a doctor's appointment this afternoon. I had to get an updated EEG because it has been a long time since I have gotten an EEG. And I was sitting there when I was getting it done, and I had this fantastic technician today. She was just amazing. I loved her. Her name was Taylor, so shout out to Taylor. But she was so good, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff. First of all, she had the pink, shiny, studded Starbucks tumbler that I have. So we got talking about collecting Starbucks tumblers. She collects them, I collect them, but then I was asking her about stuff to do with like the brain waves and whatnot. I had seen my neurologist, I think it was last week sometime, for, you know, an annual update. And he was like, let's just get a brainwave on you to make sure everything's going okay and whatnot. So I was like, okay. And so I was asking her questions as I was like watching it, you know, her reading the computer screen and all her reading the computer screen and all that kind of stuff. And so I said to her, I said, oh, I wish I had gotten a picture of this with all of like the stuff in my hair. And she said, well, I can get your phone for you when we're done. If you want, you can take a picture. And I said, oh, that would be great. Because it was like in my bag on the chair. And so at the end, I said, can you get my phone so I can take a picture? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so I said, is it strange that I'm asking to take a picture of this? And she said, no, not at all. She said, I'd say like 90% of the people asked to take a picture of this. So here, I'll throw up a picture of me getting my EEG done today. I actually think it is one of the, I was going to say most comforting things. I wouldn't say one of the most comforting things. But it's just to sit there and have somebody like glue that stuff into your hair. I don't even know. I didn't even look. I still probably, oh, I can feel it. I have like huge gloopy stuff in my hair. I'm going to have to take a shower here in a bit to get it all out. But it's just so comforting and so relaxing. It's kind of like getting a scalp massage when you're getting your hair cut, you know? So anyway, but I was sitting there and I was talking to her about making YouTube videos and stuff, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I don't know that over here on my Peter Does Stuff channel that I've ever talked about being epileptic. And it's actually been a long time since I've done like a dedicated video about that or talked specifically about that. So I thought, you know what, I just kind of like tell you guys the story a little bit about it. And the reason why I think it's important is this, that almost every time that I have shared being epileptic, whether it is on my vlog or whether it is, you know, making a video over here. I did a video a long time ago called I Had a Seizure. And whatever it is, I get emails and direct messages from people that will say, I'm epileptic too, and I'm really embarrassed of it, and I have to take this medicine, and yada, yada, yada. And like, I'm so embarrassed to tell people about it. And, you know, that's why with any story that I share, whether it's my recovery or grieving the loss of my mom or Alex and I having had marriage problems, you know, or just anything that I've gone through in my life, one of the reasons why I really feel compelled to share those stories over here is because I think that it's the human equalizer, that we've all gone through these things, right? And the only way I have felt so not alone in life is when I have heard the stories of somebody else that have gone through similar things, you know? Sure, I can sit in a doctor's office and the doctor can cite statistics to me or tell me how I'm doing and whatever. But when I meet another person and they say, oh my gosh, I have epilepsy too, or if they tell me that they have the specific same kind of epilepsy that I have, which very few people that I have met have, but I have met a few people that do have it. And then it's like, oh wow, so what's that like for you? What's it like living with it for you? Because to me, It really isn't a whole lot, except for that I have to be on medicine today. That's how it is for me today. And I got diagnosed. Actually, the last time I was in there, I had him look up the very first appointment that I ever came in, which was June 11th of 1999. And I've been seeing the same doctor. So same practice since then. But I recently saw my same doctor again from the very beginning. So June 11th, 1999. So I was just before I was turning 27 years old. Isn't that crazy? That was not actually when I got diagnosed with epilepsy. At that time, I was having jerking motions. I was like, doing stuff like this. And so like, if I was holding like these glasses or a cup of coffee and I was sitting there talking to you, I would be like, and I would drop stuff. And, people around me would say that like I went in and I went out. Like it would look like I went like that. And sometimes it would happen for just a second or 2 seconds. Sometimes it happened for longer than that, where I would be sitting here like if this was a cup of coffee and I would go, and then I would just be like out of it for a second. And then I would come to and people would say, Peter, are you okay, Peter? But some of the jerks were fast and some of the jerks were real slow. And it was scary. And I can remember having it, and I can remember thinking that when I would have it, I just wanted to lay in the middle of a bed where nothing could happen, right? So they got worse and they got worse and they got worse. And actually I was talking to her about this today because at that time, they were just going on my word. They hadn't seen them. It wasn't happening very often when it first started. I was having them maybe once a month or 2 months or something, and it kind of like progressively got worse and worse and worse. And so, I'll just tell the short story version of this, because unless people want to hear the longer story sometime, then let me know and I'll tell the longer story. But what happened was, they just were progressively getting worse and worse and worse. But I got an MRI done and it didn't show anything. I got an EEG done, which didn't show anything. And an EEG is like brain waves. They like attach all of these wires to your head and then they read it on a computer screen. I actually got to watch her while she was doing it today, and she was saying things to me like raise your eyebrows, and if I raised my eyebrows, or she would say like smile, keep your mouth closed. She could show me like the muscle movement on the EEG, which was really interesting. And so like if I started talking or if I thought, she could see like how it was registering. It was really cool. And I was asking her about like how that compares to sleep studies, and she said, well, sleep studies, they do your whole body. And so she was telling me all about this. It was very interesting. But anyway, so they couldn't find anything on the EEG. What happened was I was going to work, and I got to work and I was having them on my way. And it was literally like every 5 minutes I was having them on my way. So it was a Saturday morning and I got to work, and it was bad. And my supervisor was coming in and all this kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to be home. I always just felt like I was safe if I was home. And so, bad choice, horrible choice. I was like, I'm just going to go home. And so, got in my car and started driving. And at first I felt fine. Like I literally lived so close to home so close to work at that point. I mean, it was like 5 or 10 minutes away, that I thought that there was just like easy peasy. I'd be there and I could be in my bed and I'd be fine. And so I took all side streets because I thought, well, that way if something happens, I'll just go off the road. And I was rounding this corner, and it was it paralleled the interstate. And there were like 3 cars coming towards me, and it was like a flashing yellow light, to go through, and then around this corner. And then all I had to do once I got off that was like turn left, and I was like a straight shot home, and I was going to be there like that. And I was rounding the corner, and if you live in Indianapolis, it was Hague Road that parallels 37 right by the Roche Diagnostics, and on the north side of Indianapolis. And so before I got to the light, I was like, dear God, please just let me make it through this light. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the back of an ambulance. And I remember I was like, and my heart was like, And I don't know why I remember this, but a very good-looking EMT guy was there, and he was like, "You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay." And he was so calming, and I was like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." He's like, "You can breathe. You're fine. If you couldn't breathe, you couldn't talk to me right now." He was like, "You're fine." And I'm like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." He's like, "You're fine," and he was really relaxing to me. I had gone. The 3 cars came, and then I crossed over, and I went down the ditch, up the ditch. I was driving a Nissan Xterra, and I had my seatbelt on, and I didn't have a scratch on me. And so I went down the ditch, up the ditch, through the guardrail. I took the guardrail out, through 1 lane of traffic on the interstate, through the other side. There was like a guardrail over there too, and onto the other side of traffic, and stopped oncoming traffic. And there was like a 20-mile backup that morning. So the fact that I'm even here and I'm alive is a huge deal. It's a huge, 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 huge deal. And so, yeah, it's interesting because I was just actually talking to my neurologist about this the last time. You know, I've gotten a lot of questions when I've shared my story, because I've said that my dad kept my car at his house because the doctor said that I couldn't drive for 6 months. And I was actually talking to the neurologist about this because I've gotten so many people that have commented on my story and said, so because your dad was friends with the doctor, he just like, they worked it out with them. And my doctor said to me, actually, he said, many states, Illinois being one of them next to us, it is a state mandate that if you're driving and you have a seizure, that you lose your license for 6 months. But in the state of Indiana, that's not the case. Doctors are not allowed to report to the BMV if people have had seizures or not. You're supposed to self-report that. So I did what my doctor recommended and didn't drive for 6 months. And I can remember it being like really tough. Like I can remember I had gone through right before that. I think it was right before that. Either right before or right after I had gone through a breakup with my first long-term boyfriend. And on my days off, I can remember just putting on my backpack and like walking all around and like going to get food and going to get groceries and going to Blockbuster and stuff like that. But I was terrified of having another seizure, and it was a lot of like blood work and figuring things out to figure out what was going on. When I was in the hospital, they did an MRI on me, and they did an EEG, and they found out that I had like, they could see the seizure activity. And I was actually asking her about that, and she said, yeah, she was like, you can see it up to about 72 hours, like after the fact that's happened. And I said, well, what would happen if I had a seizure right here? And she goes, I've done EEGs on people that are having seizures. And I said, she was like, you know, when I was doing my clinicals and stuff, you know, especially. And I said, well, what would happen if I had a seizure right now? She said, I would actually see it on here before you had it. She was like, I could see the brain waves. And so anyway, I had in the hospital, that was when they were able to diagnose me. And the kind of epilepsy that I have is called juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. I'm thankful that I'm even here. I should never got into that car and drove. It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. You know, and I'm not proud of it. The only, I think, godsend that came from it was I don't know that they would have ever been able to diagnose me with epilepsy. Had that not happened, I ended up in the hospital. And so my doctor put me on 1,500 milligrams of Depakote a day. I take 500 in the morning and I take 1,000 at night, and I have ever since then. And yeah, and that's been it. One time they tried to, because of my weight gain on Depakote, you're hungry a lot. Like it is like makes your appetite really huge. And so I was gaining a lot of weight. My weight's something I talk about a lot. And he wanted to switch me to Lamictal. So we tried Lamictal for a while and I didn't like it. I can't remember. We were actually just talking about that last week. I was like, why didn't I like it? I can't remember the side effects of it, why I didn't like it. I think it made me really tired, but I'm not sure. That being said, I have been in the best shape of my entire life on Depakote as well, where I was running every day and I was lifting weights and stuff, so that's no excuse. Did I say on Lamictal? I meant on Depakote. So that's no excuse for that. So anyway, had an appointment last week, and he was like, let's just, you know, run an EEG and make sure that everything's okay. She told me today, she's like, I said, now what happens if like you see a reading and there's like there's something that's abnormal. I said, well, she goes, oh, I'll know it right away. And I said, but she goes, but I can't tell you. And I said, well, what do you do in a situation like that? And she said, well, if everything's fine, I'll just tell you at the end, like, everything's fine. She goes, if not, the doctor will come in and sit down and talk to you. So, of course, like, the whole time I was like, oh, my God, is the doctor going to come in and talk to me? But at the end, she was like, everything's fine. She was like, he's going to call you on the phone and just give you an okay. And I was like, okay. So that was that. And yeah, it's crazy to me that I've been dealing with this for over 20 years, you know? I think the interesting thing to me is when people say that they're embarrassed about it or they're ashamed of it. And it's like, I don't think we should ever be ashamed or embarrassed of things, you know, especially medical things that you can't control or do anything about. You know, it's like, what do I gain by being embarrassed or ashamed of that? I have seizure disorder. You know, with that I have, and this is a whole other conversation, but I have migraine disorder associated with my seizure disorder. I haven't really found any great solutions to the migraines through the years. I have pretty horrific migraines on a daily basis. And like every day, you cannot, first of all, you can't compare a migraine to a headache, but it's the easiest way to explain it to somebody that has never had a migraine. What it is to compare it to a headache. So that's the way I do it. But it would be like, if you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a horrific headache and 1 being no headache at all, if you had a headache of, imagine like every day at like an 8, okay, 8 out of 10, that's where I'm at every day. I would say 6 to 8 every day, that my head hurts on some level every day. I would say a 10 for me, probably once a week, where like I'm really light sensitive, and I'm not somebody that wears, I mean, I wear sunglasses when I drive, but you know, like I've known people that have really, you know, horrible migraines and have to wear sunglasses around the house and stuff like that. It's not that bad for me. I've kind of just gotten used to it through the years, that like this is just how, like this is just my head hurts a lot. I have tried migraine medicine. I've tried Midrin. I hated it. I tried Imitrex, which is where you take one and then like an hour later you take another one. It's extremely expensive, and it didn't really work for me either. The only thing that's worked for me, which is so weird because it's not even for this, is Aleve. Somebody recommended me Motrin. I took Motrin for a little while. It didn't really help as much as Aleve. Aleve helps. It kind of just dulls it a little bit for me. So I do take quite a bit of Aleve, and my doctors know that, and they're like, we don't love that you do that, but if it helps, it helps. Yeah, and it's just like, I think at some point I just have realized this is, you know, I'm just gonna have to live with this. I do remember when I first went in and saw my doctor, and he's such a nice guy, and he said to me, I like brought in like all these, like I had printed off like papers and like, you know, like bought books on epilepsy and stuff, and I was like, had all these questions, and I started asking these questions, and they were a lot of fear-based questions about what I could do and what I couldn't do and things like that. And there are things that I don't do, like I don't go on roller coasters. There are some risky things that I don't think I don't need to risk the fact that I could be on a roll. I don't like roller coasters anyway, so that was easy, you know. But I don't bungee jump. I don't need to be in something like that. I mean, I can't even imagine bungee jumping or being on a roller coaster and going into a seizure. I mean, like, I don't risk my life on a level like that. But other than that, there were, you know, a lot of things that I was worried about, and I asked, you know, a couple questions, and finally he just kind of pushed the books aside, and he said, you know, if you just listen to what I tell you to do and you take the medication, he's like, it's pretty simple with what you have. He was like, you'll be fine probably for the rest of your life. Then I've been fine for 20 plus years. That's not saying that I don't believe in second opinions. I greatly believe in second opinions. Today, if that would happen to me at 49 years old, I probably would get a second opinion. You know, and I probably would just to see if it just checked out and was the same thing. But, you know, fortunately for me back at that time, it was like I didn't. But I'm a big second opinion person today, just so you know. But, you know, this is, it's worked. And I am able to do things that other people do. And, you know, people always ask me about like going to concerts or music festivals and stuff like that. And it was interesting because one of the things that they did at the end of the EEG is that they flash like lights in your face. You close your eyes and then they flash lights in your eyes. And that doesn't really bother me, but she was telling me that, like, for some people that lights don't bother, and supposedly it's because of, like, the part of the brain that my brain is affected. He told me that years ago, that I don't have this, like, orbital response. But anyway, she told me that, like, with people that, like, flashing lights, if I go to, like, a music festival and it's like, do, like, if I look away when it starts and then I kind of slowly go back over, it's fine. But if I look right at it, sometimes it doesn't, I don't feel seizure-ish, because I can tell you there are days that I do feel seizure-ish. I don't feel seizure-ish, and those are the days that I do feel that way, are the days that I stay at home and I don't go anywhere, and I just, you know, make sure I can just lay down for a little bit and whatever. But, what was I going to say? Oh, but I don't feel seizures, but I feel like a headache starting is how I feel, or like I'm, you know, not like a migraine, but really kind of more of a headache when it's like I'm looking right at lights. What she told me that I thought was interesting was, and I've never thought of this, she said, it can almost affect people more, like if you are not affected by flashing lights. She said, like, have you ever noticed that, like, you're affected by, like, slow changing lights? Like, when lights change from, like, green to, you know, red to yellow or whatever. And I was like, or green to yellow to red. And I was like, that is so weird, because, yeah, I am sometimes. Or, like, TV channels slowly changing, or, like, slow changes of, like, lights and stuff. Or if I'm sitting really close, I can't. The other thing is, I'm really weirdly affected by depth perception. So, like, I don't play video games like that. I used to sometimes, but, like, my husband and I would play, like, Grand Theft Auto, and I literally would be like this. It made me feel so weird driving those cars. And one time, he and I, we went to, when we were in Las Vegas, I think it was our very first trip that we ever took, and we went to go, it was at the Luxor, and we saw this show. I don't know why we did it. It was like, but it was like you're on the back of this Safari, this Jeep Wrangler, and you're like this. I mean, I literally thought I was going to vomit. Like, I thought I was, like, on this thing. Because, like, it's depth and distance is really weird for me and things like that. So, and that has all to do with, like, the epilepsy, is what I've been told through the years. So, I don't know. I just thought I'd share that story with you guys today, since I went and got an EEG, and yeah. Because I have epilepsy. That's the reason why. So, anyway, let me know what you think about all of that. Boo Radley! He said, I'll tell you what I think about that. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. What do you want, Boo Radley? He said, I want to take a nap. Well, maybe we'll just go ahead and take a nap now. So, anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Bye.